Hi guys, it's Kathy at Art Zone. I am going to show you how to make what I call the American Dragon or Puff the Magic Dragon. They're just a bit different than the Chinese dragons. We did put a video out for the Chinese dragons, so now we're going to show you our Puff the Magic Dragon. And of course you can combine your dragons together absolutely any way you want. And I know a lot of you like to do the how to train your dragons. So here we are. To do this dragon, in your clay kit, you're going to have a pound of clay, popsicle stick, and still has clay on it, skewer. I also encourage you to have just a little water off to the side, maybe a towel. Clay comes out of clothing, so it's really not a big deal. Use an older towel. And then I like to have a styrofoam plate nearby. It helps me in a number of ways. One way is to make sure that I don't make my dragon too long, because the longer the dragon is, the more likely it is to break. So the plate is a really good size, and if you keep it fitting on that plate, it's more likely to survive. It's also really good that when you get to the glazing stage, you can put it down on that plate. You can spin it around as you glaze. We call that a lazy Susan, sort of, kind of, and not mess up your glaze as you're working. We also encourage you, once you have it done, to put it into a bag while on this plate, because it's easier to lift it up and us not break it as you are bringing it to us. So we're gonna start by taking your clay, both hands on it, twist and pull until you have two pieces. This time, whichever piece is bigger, set down on the table. Keep your smaller piece in your hand. Now, we want it to be just a little smaller, so I'm gonna take it. This time I'm not cutting it in half. I'm doing what would be more of a third. So you have to think of this guy cut into 3 pieces without actually doing it, if you can. So I have 2/3 here, 1/3 there, and I'm gonna put that one back with my extra clay. So I kept the bigger piece this time. I'm gonna turn this into a ball. To start our dragon body, we do what's called a pinch pot. So if I flip him over, you'll see that he has a hollow body. There's a number of reasons for that. If I were to take this ball and just build upon it, well, the problem is it's a very thick piece of clay and it will take a very long time to dry. The chances of it not being dry in the center by the time I go to put it into the kiln is extremely high when you have a thick piece of clay. When that happens, the steam that's caused when it gets hot, because we put it into a kiln, it gets to 1800 degrees, that steam happens inside of it because it's boiling out all this water, and then it just causes your piece to explode. I know a lot of people will tell you it's because air is trapped, but it's truly the steam that is causing your explosions. It's not dry enough. So we're gonna take this ball of clay, we're gonna make it a little thinner by taking our thumb and twist and push and twist and push until you have a clay thumb. Then we're gonna twist and pull and get your thumb out. And we're gonna make this a pinch pot by putting our thumb back in. We're not gonna super thin it out, so just give it a little bit of a pinch as you spin it around. It's gonna make that dragon body just a little bigger to work with. And now I have my round dragon body. My dragons always look quite plump. So I don't know what dragons eat, but mine likes to eat a lot of them. So I'm gonna take this dragon body and go ahead and set it down on my plate for now. And go back to my extra piece of clay and let's turn it into a ball. Once again, we're gonna divide it into 2 by taking it, twisting and pulling, so you have 2 pieces. Whichever piece is smaller, set down on the table. Keep your bigger piece in your hand. But once again, we're gonna try and take 1/3 of it off. So I want more on one side than the other. So there's my little piece, there's my big piece. I'm gonna take my little piece, put it into my extra clay off to the side. I'm gonna turn this big piece into a ball. This is going to become the dragon's tail. Once it's in a ball, I'm going to take it back and forth. I'm going to start to make a potato that will now start to turn into a really thick worm-like shape. I want one side to be the end of the tail. So this side right here is already thinner. So I'm going to start pinching at it more until I can get it to come to a point. You can get fancy with the end of your tail if you like. This one here, if you look close, you can see it was made into a triangle. And that's just you sitting there working with it and deciding what the tip of your tail is gonna look like. We've had people turn it into fire and all kinds of really fun stuff. Once you get the end of your tail the way you want it to be, let's go back to the big part of the tail. And this time we're going to tap it and create a flat area. This is going to allow us to put it onto our dragon body. When we put two pieces of clay together, we have to do something that's called scratch to attach. So if I'm going to put this on here, I'm going to pick up my body and I'm going to scratch it really, really deep. I don't want my dragon tail to fall off. And I'm going to take this and once again scratch it super, super deep. I'm actually going to switch it out for another tail that I have already started. You're going to notice that it has all these points and stuff to it already. I'll talk to you about how I did that in just a little bit. But I'm going to take it and once again, I'm going to scratch, scratch, scratch. Scratch to attach. I'm going to tap a little bit of water. You don't want too much water. It will just cause your clay to melt into a puddle, or it will cause it to crack later on when it's drying. So I'm going to take those two scratches and I'm going to put them together. I'm going to kind of shove them together. Now, right now, it looks kind of funny because I still need to blend. Blend means that I am rubbing these two pieces of clay together until I can't tell that they were two separate pieces of clay. Shaping it so that they go together well. I'll pick it up and you'll see there's a real definite, well, that white stuff is actually some glaze that was left on my plate. But there is a real definite line there and I want to really rub those two together. Before I go any further, I want you to get your name on this. You can use your skewer. You could carve your name into the bottom of the tail, or you could carve it into the pinch pot. You decide, but make sure and get it on there. Make sure that your dragon is fitting on the plate somehow. It's not going too long. Mine is just about as long as it could get. And once you have those all together, it's time to work on our dragon head. So we have our extra clay. Put it into a ball. Once again, twist and pull. Whichever piece is smaller, put down on the table. Keep your bigger piece in your hand. But I'll go ahead and take a little extra off and put it with my extra clay. And let's turn this into a ball. This is going to become the dragon's head. Once it's into a ball, let's go back and forth and make it a potato. Don't go longer than the palm of your hand. So now we're going to take it and we're going to flatten it. I'm going to take it and make it more rectangle. So I'm tapping it. I'm making a rectangle. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle. I just like a rectangular head on my dragons. It seems to work well for me. Once I get the shape that I'm happy with, well, then I'm going to open up my dragon's mouth. You could either do that if you want your head to be a little taller or if you want it this way, you decide. But we're going to take this and we're going to push it right in there. And here's my mouth. Now, you could take a little water, smooth this out. You could add teeth and a tongue, but not yet. Wait on that. Now that I have my mouth, my head, I'm I'm gonna go to my dragon body and add it on. Scratch to attach, really scratch them up. At this point, I'm actually gonna stop scratching because I'm not gonna keep this dragon. I have enough of them. So let's pretend I scratched, I added water. Now I'm gonna blend. And I'm gonna rub, rub, rub to really make sure that my dragon's head is gonna stay on. I'm gonna look underneath the head right here and blend the two together. Smooth it out, make it work. There we go. You can always use just a little water to smooth things out, especially if it starts to crack on you. You want to use some water to smooth it out. Now, I'm going to give my dragon nostrils. I'm going to take the back of my skewer. I'm just going to put it right in there and over here. You could play and shape this mouth a little bit different if you like. Completely your choice. I'm going to go to the head, and I'm also going to use the back of my pinky, and I'm going to press it in, and that's going to give my dragon an eye socket. A socket, that's a hole in the head, right? We have eye sockets. Now I have 2 eye sockets, and I'm ready to go to my extra clay. Take some little pinches off to make eyeballs. Now it's really hard to scratch to attach into an eye socket with eyeballs. If you can do it, I highly encourage you to. It'll make sure it stays in. If not, take that eyeball, dip it in the water, get it nice and wet, and then put it into the eye socket and kind of rub, 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 blend around it just a little, maybe even push up a little cheek or something to try and make sure that it stays into that eye socket and doesn't fall out later. So that's the start. We'll come back and do even more to the head here in just a bit. But let's talk about these spikes. To add these spikes, if I want them to go up the top of my head, kind of like it is on this one, I'm gonna take some of my extra clay. I'm gonna roll it out into a snake. Not a thin snake. And you might have to use multiple snakes to get all the way down your dragon's body. I'm gonna scratch that spot where I'm gonna put it, and I'm gonna scratch the bottom of the snake. Add some water, and then blend it on. It's gonna start by looking kind of like a mohawk, to where it's just a straight line that's raised going up the body. But then you have your popsicle stick, and you could take it over the head, all the way down the nose if you like. I'm gonna take that popsicle stick, and I'm gonna start cutting into it, and then coming back and shaping them however it is you might like them. If you want them to be little pointy triangles, you go for it. Take your time. If they ever look too thick, then cut it in half and work on it some more. Great thing about clay, you can always rework it. If it starts to dry out, simply add a little water to it. Not a lot. Okay. So I've added those on. My next step is going to be legs. Go to your extra clay. Let's take off 4 pieces. Don't attach them right away. Go ahead and put the 4 pieces out in front, because we want to see that they are about the same size. That's actually wrong. I actually went too big and too little, because the Puff the Magic Dragon, his legs, his back legs, are much thicker than the front little legs. The front little legs are almost like a T-Rex leg. So you're gonna take it, roll these up so you can compare their size and make sure that you get too big and too little. I already have this done. Once you have too big and too little, roll them out into short little worms. I wouldn't go much longer than your pinky for your front legs, but then you could go for the ring finger for your back legs. Then of course they should be a little thicker than the front legs. The first thing I always do is to give it an elbow bend. It's gonna look more realistic. So I bend it, that's my elbow bend. Then think about how, and this is a front leg, think about how that leg is going to end in some kind of hand or claw. So I'm gonna bend it where a wrist could be. And I'm gonna flatten it out some where the hand is. So I just kind of flattened it out. And then I'm gonna take my popsicle stick and cut it apart to make little claws. And then you can sit here and really shape them the way you want them to be. So this is more of the front leg. The back leg's very similar too, except I really try and make sure that the back leg stays more in a bent L here, so that it's gonna look like he's sitting when I put it back here. So I do have my legs ready over here. Here's my back legs. And my front leg, my other one. And of course, we have to scratch to attach. So I'm gonna put one here, make its foot touch the ground, scratch to attach it, add a little water, and then rub and blend so that this starts to look like a thigh. You really have to rub below. I didn't really give this one much of a foot, but you are always welcome to do that. And of course, this one will go on this side. And then I have my front leg arm, which it looks like this one might be a little long for what I'm doing. You see how it looks a little long? So I could always shorten it, or I could have my arms a little out there if you want that. Just remember, the further away it is from the body, the more likely it is to get bumped and broken. So I usually try not to make mine go too far. Of course, you're scratching to attach these, really blending around. At this point, you guys are pausing the video when you need to. We really like to give you freedom here at Art Zone to figure out how to do different parts of your dragons. If you watch the Chinese video, the Chinese dragon video, you're gonna see a lot more detail into the faces, mostly due to the fact that Chinese dragons are supposed to be composed of 9 different animals, so their face has a lot of detail. At this point, your extra clay is going to be used to decide what's on your dragon's head. If you're going to add horns or ears, tongues or teeth, you could, if you had enough extra clay, if you wanted to add wings. Wings really need to be kept thick and kind of small so that you can add them onto your dragon and they stay on. However it is that you choose to do that. Of course, you would scratch to attach, all that good stuff. But I'm not going to walk you through all of that because I want you guys to explore and come up with your own designs. You can glaze these right away. We use Stroke and Coat Mako, so it's made to go right on wet clay. If you don't want to dry it or glaze it, that's fine, but I wouldn't let it dry out before you glaze. Once it dries out and it turns really light gray, super fragile. We call that bone dry. Anytime you touch bone dry stuff, it breaks. So if you're not gonna glaze it right now, put a bag on it, set it to the side, it should be fine. Then you can glaze it. Once you're done glazing it, let it dry 20 or 30 minutes, put it back into a bag so that you can keep it as wet as possible so that it will survive on the ride back to us so we can put it into our kiln and get it all nice and shiny and fired for you guys. Thank you for joining us for our video. We look forward to seeing your creations and have a great day.